The following day, Jack came by at breakfast time. "Doesn't anyone wait until the afternoon to come over? I guess that was the best time to catch me. Who knows what I might be up to by 10 a.m. in the morning." I was learning that when someone showed up in the morning, I was going to be busy that day. Jack had just come back from the annual meeting of the Watchers. Each year the Watchers from the 42 regions get together for a 10-day conference. There are over 700 Watchers who attend the meeting each year. This year they held the conference on the planet Dune, in the region Abigail. The planet was a complete desert, hence the name Dune. Each of the 42 regions selected a particular planet in their territory to build a large complex for those conferences. Every complex included multiple facilities designed and built for housing representatives from all the other areas who will attend the conference. Every entity built their own housing facility in each of the other 41 regions. These council conference centers were the only structures on one particular planet in each region. No other structures were allowed on that planet. In addition, the complexes were built in the same fashion as immortal cities. Sierra's facility, named Cartagena, was built on a floating platform in the middle of the Azure Sea on the uninhabited planet Sandberg. The planet had a 37-hour day, and like most of the conference facilities, existed on a planet with longer days. The floating platform was 100 miles square and constructed of dark gray granite with gold and various colored jade inlaid designs. It was a good mix of water and structure. The conference dome, in the center of the platform, was 20,000 square feet and made of a single crystal, with emerald and blue sapphire accents. When the light hit it, it sparkled with every color one could imagine, and other colors hard to pronounce, beyond imagination. The floor was made of 12-foot squares of dark blue sodalite, looking as if it were made of a single piece. A round intricately carved teak stage was constructed in the center of the hall, with a large round podium situated in the center. The stage was surrounded by dozens of conference desks made of single pieces of carved walnut, all of which were accompanied by natural rattan chairs and couches with comfortable pillows on which to sit. Outside each entryway stood fountains made of single yellow diamonds, set around the dome marking every 45 degrees on the compass. Set atop the dome was a single blue sapphire shaped like an eagle with 4 heads. Each head pointed at 4 different yellow fountains, which indicated on the compass directly north, south, east, and west. Each eagle head on the blue sapphire shot a stream of water in a big arch down to the yellow fountain below. Each doorway had colored lights inset into its crystal frame just bright enough to blend colors with one another. When the other regions built their accommodations on Sandburg, they were required to follow the same design. It was the same requirement for each of the regions. Throughout the 10 days of the conference, each leader got up to give a report on the success of their particular region. The conference kept the Watchers in contact with one another. I remembered as soon as Jack told me, but I did not remember ever going to one. Jack represented Sierra this year. I asked, "How was it?" "Informational," he said. Then I asked, I would not understand anyway, "But did anything stand out in the way of new and exciting developments?" "Not really. Every region was operating smoothly. Diane held the conference this year, and she acted her usual energetic crazy self." I said, "Diane Beale, huh?" Diane was a girl I knew back on Earth. I had a crush on her when I was in the 7th grade. We lost contact until she showed up as one of the 42. I'm excited she got involved. Besides, she ran one of the best regions of the 42. Jack concluded, the conference was another success, being both fun and beneficial. Also, many people asked for you. I didn't say much, but each hoped to see you next year. Then, he said, actually, I came over to ask if you recall ever going to a country fair. He assumed I'd remember. Unfortunately, I didn't. So, I told him no. He said transport. We were off to the planet Cedar. Jack explained since development of the mDNA seeds, Cedar had to establish a way to choose the best livestock for meat production. One approach to single out high-quality animals, without going to every ranch on the planet, was to invent an annual livestock fair. The fair was where the best cattle, pigs, chickens, and other livestock were judged and singled out for produce, seeding. First place livestock were the ones to receive the MDNA seeds. It became the fastest way to select the best animals. It eventually grew into a country fair providing food, entertainment, a rodeo, and assorted competitions. A large fairground was built big enough to hold over 2 million people at one time. It does not take much to get Syrians to have a festival. The fair was a wonderful, exciting event, particularly the homemade pies. I ate blueberry pie until my lips turned blue, and barbecue ribs until I oinked like a pig. I won me a cowboy hat while playing a ring toss. There was no end to it. We attended 2 rodeos, a horse riding competition, tractor pulls and more. The humans from Prairie won most of the riding events, who from a young age became expert riders. I asked around, but my friend Dave did not come to the festival. Country singers stood on stages singing all over the place, each one more talented than the last, or the same. I couldn't tell. In the evening, campers built campfires to sit around while visiting with their neighbors and new friends. Jack brought 2 sleeping bags and tents. We acquired a spot and set them up. We found coffee for the morning, pillows on which to lay our heads, and cowboy boots for no particular reason. I felt more like I belonged here than back in my world. Casey, Keith and Crystal came by for 2 days. Each brought their own camping gear. I was excited they came. I took them to the best place to buy cowboy boots at the fair. In the evening, we sat around the campfire talking together, roasting hot dogs and marshmallows. I ate too many marshmallows. I am sure I still have a sweet tooth. The next day, we strolled around looking at the first place livestock. It was surprising to see young children raised many of the winners. I was certain that many reluctant parents put effort in the somewhere. We must have walked 100 miles trying to get a look at all the animals and events. The last evening, the Rider Association held horse races. We sat late into the night rooting for our favorite picks. The kids and Jack left after the races. I spent the night and returned home the next morning after a strong cup of coffee. I spent a couple days at home alone, although it did not matter as I appreciated the solitude. Early one morning I strolled down to the garden to talk with the gardener. He acted annoyed with me. I asked him questions while offering to water the plants, but I perceived he was still resentful because I had all the roses replaced. Companions often digress to mechanical thinking at times. Gardening is my job, he said, with a smile hiding behind a modest tinge of aggravation. He let me know I should leave him to his duties. The evenings were surreal. I again ventured down to the end of the bay where it opened to the ocean, wondering whether the young man might come running by again. Since he did not, I determined I would try it. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Off I ran and down I sank into the water. Well, that didn't work out, so I swam for a while. When I got out of the water, I watched a 50-foot sailboat come through the entrance in the jetty. Its mast was blue, green and yellow, outlined with white, and in full sail driven by the wind slipping across the water with little effort. The local pod of dolphins chased it through the water, jumping out with high leaps and plunging back in. The boat moored at a dock across the bay. It was tranquil to watch. The pod of dolphins left following the boat, swam over to have a look at me, and then darted out into deeper water. As I walked along the beach, I discovered a treasure trove of various shaped colorful shells I hadn't noticed before at the edge of the water. So, I went beach combing, even though walking in the sand still sucks. That night I had another dream, one of the most powerful dreams I have ever had. I was on a different beach than the one at the house. Narrow columns were reaching up out of the sand and the surf, hundreds of them. They stood 10 to 15 feet apart, and 12 to 20 feet tall. Each one looked like stacked round blocks piled on top of one another, appearing to be sandstone, and measured 7 to 10 feet in circumference at the base. The ocean was a glassy orange-red from the setting sun and eerily still with exception of slight ripples dripping on the shore. The temperature was at least 85 degrees and sultry. I was sitting on a fallen column near the back of the beach, near a patch of tall seagrass. Everything standing out of the water had an orange to a golden hue, notably the columns. As I sat there, a young thin man came walking in my direction from the right, down the beach. Then, I saw to the left a furious-looking beast or man-beast. He was a giant, at least 3 times the size of the young man. The beast saw the young man, then charged him, striking him until he fell to the ground. He could not get up, nor did the beast let up, and I concluded he was dead. I wanted to help, but could not because I couldn't move from the column, and able only to observe the brutality. After the beast finished beating the young man, he turned to walk back to where he came from. As he did, the young man got up, then walked again. I could not accept what I was seeing. The beast turned to assault him again, beating him into the sand. It looked to be twice as awful as before. Again, the beast turned to walk back to where he came from. The young man stood up again, then walked. It happened several times. I felt distressed for him, but he kept getting up and walking. I yelled at him to stay down. But to my ineffective calls, he got back up each time. Every time the beast beat up the young man, the beast appeared to lose effectiveness as he seemed weaker after each ambush. Finally, the last time the young man got up, the beast had no more strength to crush him. The thin man conquered the beast with absolute authority. To my astonishment, he picked up the beast, lifted him over his head, and then walked down to the water to toss him in. The beast did not come out of the water afterward. As I watched, the young man came my way. He stopped 20 feet before me, staring right at me. I said, "How did you do that?" He replied, "I wanted to live." Then he looked at me as he exclaimed in a loud authoritative voice, "Live." He shouted again, "Never give up," as he walked away. I woke up sweating. I laid there trying to figure it out, but I didn't have a clue what it meant. Next time Jack came over, I discussed it with him. He said maybe I would face challenges I would need to overcome. Then he said, "You know, Jeff, the battle sounds like every tough spiritual battle you might face back in your day. It's always a struggle to overcome anything standing between you and your God, but who knows?" He said that like he knew something I didn't. I thought about Keith. When Keith died, I got mad at God. When I needed him most, I turned away. So, even if I should face such grief again, I could never act as I did then. I don't know why it came to mind. Perhaps, that was the battle I had or was having. Eventually, I let it go. Jack mentioned another festival called the Water Festival. I objected. We just returned from a festival a few days ago. This one is different, Jeff. You need to come if for no other reason to make you understand what a mortal you have turned into, he said, snickering. I wasn't confident how to counter. I asked, "Can I wear my cowboy hat?" His response said it all: silence. We took transportation to the northern hemisphere of commerce to a place called Glasbury Harbour, on the Swansea Bay. Swansea Bay was next to the tri-national capital city of Carmarthenshire, on the southern tip of the northern light isles of the Great Northern Ocean. Carmarthenshire and the harbour were shared by 3 different countries, the Irish, the Scottish, and the Welsh, making up the countries of Carlingford, Berwick, and Conwy respectively. Each nation's land came to a point right at Carmarthenshire, like slices of pizza. So, depending on which direction you left the city, you might end up in one of 3 different countries. All 3 groups of people settled there in the beginning and never left. In a proclamation of unity, the 3 countries designated Carmarthenshire as the capital of all 3 nations. Well, it was the best natural harbour, and they didn't want to quarrel over it, so they shared it. The population of the 3 countries combined, by the year M206, was just over 7 million. Within the Irish people was one of the more exotic peoples called the Shortstanders. They were a contingent of 20,000 Irish folk who lived in the small borough of Galway. The borough was a terrain of small hills and glens spread out in central Carlingford. There wasn't a man in the borough over 4 foot 6 inches tall. I don't know how they did it, but the people fell in love, and married, based on that one criterion. I believe the founders read The Hobbit as they built their houses right into the side of the many hills in the area. No, No one called them hobbits. I understand the ability to build houses in such a way was why they preferred the area. Shortstanders were a close-knit group of people and were big on the Sabbath, as not one of them would work on Friday because they spent that day preparing food for the Sabbath beginning Friday evening. They were well known for their potlucks, and every Sabbath was set aside for hundreds of them. Potlucks took place in every glen and valley throughout all of Carlingford. Anyone who wished was invited. The only condition is that one showed up the day before and did not leave until Saturday evening when the Sabbath ended. The Shortstanders proved to be one of the most hospitable people found anywhere. Most of the Shortstanders worked as expert craftsmen. A moon, called the Gold Moon, orbited Academy and contained massive gold and silver deposits. Emerald mines on Serengeti produced emeralds the size of an elephant, and a desolate planet, called Limerick, had great deposits of copper, zinc, tin and other materials required to make both brass and bronze. Shortstanders were experts at crafting all the natural elements into masterful works of art, coins, and components for use throughout Sierra. For example, they produced many parts of the machinery for many of the factories on the Planet Factory. They made items for appliances, lighting, and anything needing metalwork to operate. Many of the items in my observatory were crafted by the Shortstanders. My telescope was designed and built by Anri Cullen, Shortstander. He put his name on a small tag at the base of the eyepiece. His name was written in small letters, and I thought it odd I could read them easily, but couldn't see through the eyepiece itself. Who knows why they worked with emeralds, perhaps because the gems were green. Honestly, I don't know and never asked, although the gems made attractive dinner settings. Carlingford considered the Shortstanders a national treasure as did the whole of the Northern Isles. Also, the Isles were recognized for their aurora borealis. Many a night, the whole of 3 countries would light up as the polar lights ran back and forth through the atmosphere. People from all around Sierra would come to see them, or experience them. Glasbury Harbour was the largest harbour on Commerce, accommodating over 10,000 fishing vessels. The harbour could hold over 1 million people at one time, which made it ideal for the festival. The festival lasted for a week, and most of the planet would come before it was over. The Great Northern Ocean produced one of the biggest salmon runs anywhere, more than 1 trillion fish would run, crossing close outside the bay on their way to all different parts of Commerce. Also, the area had a bounty of king crab and halibut. The bay supported the biggest king crab found anywhere. The fishing industry supported Carmarthenshire and supported the economy of the 3 different countries well. Many a seafaring man resided in Carmarthenshire. Its fishermen would harvest over 1 billion fish each year, 10% of the annual run. Salmon was a staple in all of Sierra. Since I arrived, I have eaten it frequently, although I liked halibut more. When we landed there, Jack pointed out, the Water Festival is another annual festival which takes place throughout all of Sierra. The one on Commerce included over half of Carmarthenshire's fishing fleet. A contingent of the fishermen would venture out in the middle of the Northern Ocean in mid-July to gather pods of water that float up from the ocean floor. The water within the pods had an incredible healing capacity. Jeff, have you ever heard of the Pool of Bethesda? Yes, I replied. Well, as you know, Bethesda was a pool by the sheep market in Jerusalem. An angel would come down to stir, or trouble, the water in the pool. The first person to get into the pool was healed of whatever ailment that person had. It's the same water in the Pool of Bethesda, and the same water as the river of life flowing out from the throne room of Christ, back on earth. This festival takes place in different local variations all over Sierra. All have the same purpose, the water. This water sustains people, the mortals, keeping them healthy and young throughout the whole universe, God's kingdom. I inserted, isn't God amazing? Yes, he is, Jeff, he replied then continued. In mid-July a chosen angel goes down to the bottom of the Northern Ocean. The angel draws the water from an undersea river to fill the pods. I knew that, as I remembered most everything, once introduced. Then I asked half-heartedly, to be annoying more than anything else, how does he do that? I don't know how he does it, Jeff. Let me finish. With a perturbed face, he continued, Then, the angel lets them float to the surface. The fishing boats would come out from Swansea Bay to drop their nets and scoop them up. Afterward, the fishing boats delivered the water back to the harbour to share with anyone who wanted it. Well, with one drink of the water, anything wrong with you would become healed, he said as he smiled. It was another reason to have another Syrian festival. During the week-long festival, various ethnic groups played music. The Irish, with Irish dancers, would perform in one corner, the Welsh in another corner, and the Scots in their kilts with their bagpipes in another. All the fairgoers walked around eating grilled fish. I had a plate of excellent steamed buttered halibut, an oversized plate. I could barely hold on to it. Others wandered around dancing to their favorite music, watching for the boats to return. Once the boats came back and unloaded the thousands of pods of water, people crowded around to fill whatever containers they brought with them. It was the tradition to bring your own containers to collect the water. It depended on the size of your family. Some only brought a cup and drank the water as soon as they received it. Others brought large pitchers so they could carry water back to family members who were unable to attend. Any water not claimed at the fair was bottled and put in the supermarkets, no worries for many who did not or could not attend. The 2 days we spent there turned out to be another thrilling facet of the last several months I have spent in Sierra. Each evening concluded with an impressive fireworks display. When I went to drink the water, Jack prevented me, informing me I could not drink it because it would regenerate me in ways that would interfere with my return to Earth. He said, "We can't be mailing you back younger or livelier than when you arrived." It disheartened me. Oh well, was I going home? By then, Sierra felt more like my home, and I was forgetting my old life back on the Earth. It didn't help that my children came over on Friday evenings, once a month, for Sabbath. I didn't observe it traditionally as we visited, ate for the evening, and the next day. Often we had family meals down on the beach. After I discovered the stone hall, I invited the kids to stay over. They already knew about the room, but never said anything. So, from that point on they slept on the beds and in sleeping bags on the floor in the stone room on Friday nights. I now know that was what they were for. I enjoyed making popcorn and going up to build a fire, and talk with the kids before everyone fell asleep. It was such a warm feeling to be with my children and grandchildren, together. Sadly, I recognized I wasn't this character while on Earth. My circumstances were partially at fault, and I had become so reclusive. Not anymore. I want to be constantly involved with my children, and I demand this eternity. The festival was another exciting event I was fortunate to have experienced in Sierra. I arrived home late in the night, but I grabbed my writing materials to place it all down on paper before retiring to bed. To place it all down on paper before retiring to bed. To place it all down on paper before retiring to bed. To place it